X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Battle of the Atom. This is the weekly podcast where I, Zach Jenkins, and my co-host, Adam Percival Reck, go through 3 X-Men stories, and we add them onto our ever-expanding list that covers all the X-Men stories in order, not by chronologically, not by like cover price. That'd be a weird way to order things. It would be recent stuff first. But by quality, what's the best and what's the absolute trash worst? Which is very important today.
It's very important today.
Adam, how are we?
I'm unprepared for today. Like, I've read the stuff, but like emotionally, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Yeah, this is a rough thing. I was telling Adam that we're actually recording this back to back with last week's episode, and in between that, I lifted a bed a couple of times for reasons that aren't worth getting into because they're very benign on why I had to solo lift this large queen size bed with a very, very thick mattress on it. But I definitely screwed up my shoulder in between the 5 minutes we had of a break between recordings. And he tells me, oh no, that's good. You should be suffering while we talk about this story.
Yeah, I feel like everybody is going to be suffering when we talk about this because it's bad. But I don't know. We should probably get into who requested this, right?
We should let everyone know who to blame. And that is Patreon supporter Chris Edelman. Now, Chris, you may know from the podcast that he does with his wife, Chris Edelman, called Chris's on Infinite Earths, which is a very good name.
Very clever. Love it. So what did Chris request? Because this is a landmark for us, isn't it? This is our 100th story.
Yeah, we got 99 problems on this list right now. And this is not one of them yet, but it will be our new number 100. Well, it'll be the 100th one on the list. We'll save the suspense for the rest of it. But Chris requested the Draco, which is Uncanny X-Men 428 to 434. This was written by Chuck Austen.
With deep breath.
Oh my, this is tough for me. I am getting viscerally angry about all of this. Talented person Sean Phillips does the prologue issue to this. Mm-hmm. And talented person Takeshi Miyazawa does the final issue of this. And Philip Tan, no adjective going to be added to this one, based solely on these 5 issues he does the middle chunk.
What is this up? Yeah. What is good? What is this? Where do we even begin with the Draco?
How do you solve a problem like the Draco? You got to start at the beginning, I guess. That's where you do things from.
Okay.
You know how you know how Mystique is Nightcrawler's mom, and we've known that for years at this point.
It's been hinted.
Well, turns out Nightcrawler's mom in 1983 lived in an late 1800s, early 1900s Victorian castle with some duke and played games with everyone else by definitely doing some non-consensual activities with everyone, using her shape-shifting powers to be just a skeevy dude. And then she can't get pregnant with her husband, and apparently the only thing Mystique wants in the world is a kid, which is some hot garbage right there to start off.
That doesn't make any sense.
None of that tracks, especially because Graydon Creed is older than Nightcrawler. He is, because if we go by the chronology of this story, Nightcrawler's like 19, and Great Incognito is running for president.
Yeah, the timeline here makes no sense whatsoever. Like, it feels like they just arbitrarily put 20 years ago on the first page of the story, but like, what does that even mean? With the sliding timeline and the architecture, and you're unsure of like where we are time wise. Even
one. This is page one of the Draco.
Yeah,
it's
we're
garbage.
already
From
not making
one.
any sense. No sense whatsoever. So
Look,
she
Sean
does
Phillips
get pregnant.
Is a good artist. That's the one good thing. Let's put that out of the way.
And it's funny that you say that, because this is my first time through with the Draco, and I'm reading the first issue and I'm going, you know what? I like Sean Phillips. Is this really as bad as everybody says? But then I'm also reading it. So yeah, there's that. So right off the bat, we're already like not making a lot of sense. And then she is impregnated by one of our favorite
the man
characters.
She falls in love with, Azazel. Oh. You remember Azazel from such stories as Nothing and such appearances as being Red Nightcrawler in X-Men First Class?
That's about it.
That's about it.
But it only takes a couple of rendezvous for Mystique to fall head over heels with Azazel.
Also some hot garbage.
Yep. Not buying it. The waterfall "I'm in love" scene doesn't really track.
The worst.
And then she has Nightcrawler, dumps him off a waterfall, and he bamfs midway down, which is kind of adorable. And then we get right into the hot, deep mess of the rest of this, because it's
just the thickest garbage.
God. Oof. Zach, question for you.
Yeah.
Why is everyone yelling in this story at each other all the time?
Well, one, you've not read all of Chuck Austin's run, so you're not aware of how horny everyone is in this run.
Is that what it is? Is it just hormones that everybody's just like hot for each other, so they're just screaming at each other?
This is pent up sexual anger from literally everyone else, because I think it's the only thing that makes sense at this point.
I'll buy it.
But yeah, everyone's screaming and like spitting, and they've got gross stuff hanging off their mouths the whole time.
Everyone looks like they've been chewing on Elmer's glue, and it doesn't matter when the person has their mouth open, like, and how much emotion is behind the line. They are like, caulked up. It is disgusting.
It's about the worst. So the art after Sean Phillips is unappeasing, unappealing. It's bad. It's bad. Philip Tan, you done bad here. Anyway, I don't even want to recap this, but people need to know, if you haven't read this, the Draco is notorious for being bad, and this story's worse than you think it is.
Can I give it a shot? I feel like I know what this is about.
I want you to, because the words are not coming out of my mouth hole.
Okay, so tell me if I'm wrong here, because it really doesn't seem to make any sense. Azazel's plan is to sire enough mutant demon children on Earth so that he can get back to Earth with his hell children, who he also has to transport from Earth to his like hell dimension. Did I get that right?
Not the worst plan in Chuck Austin's run. I'm going to tell you that right now. Not even the worst Nightcrawler teleportation-based plan in Chuck Austin's run. We will get to Holy War, which is also garbage.
There's something worse than this?
Chuck Austin's run starts at bad, and it goes to unknown depths. There are 3 particular stories, the Draco, Holy War, and She Lies with Angels, that are all legitimate contenders for the worst X-Men story of all time. They are all bottom shooters on this list.
Yeah.
The Draco has the notoriety of being 7 damn issues long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rough because that's about Azazel's plan. Also, Azazel's is Nightcrawler's dad. We figured that out. And Iceman gets threatened to be turned into P-Man. Get turned into Iceman, but made out of wee-wee.
Yeah, by Havoc of all people.
Yeah. And then there's subplots in this. There's subplots about Jubilee checking out Nightcrawler's junk, which is uncomfortable.
That was not cool. Juggernaut is going to go kill an abusive father, and he's not going to let Alpha Flight stop him from murdering that guy.
To be fair, Sammy's dad is a bad guy. And
yes,
if there's any good to be gleaned out of the Chuck Austin run, it's that Sammy in Juggernaut's relationship has its moments. It's endearing in a way that the rest of his run really isn't, if it's not particularly good.
I'll tell you what's not endearing is awkward conversations between Juggernaut and Northstar, who has to fly him to the said child, an abusive father.
So that's bad, and I think it's worse because it was 2003, and I can tell you what, I don't want to go and read a transcript of all the things I said when I was in 2003. Culturally, and the fact that I was 12 make it so that those were not great times. So it hasn't aged well, and it wasn't good to begin with there. And then we also get weird Polaris stuff, because this is right after her wedding got crashed by her, kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad, and she talks about how she had a mental breakdown after all the stuff on Genosha. And she also acts like a jerk to Nurse Anne, who Nurse Anne is bottom of the barrel in terms of X-Men characters. She's very bad. Her and her trash child Carter. Refuse in child form, him. Yeah. All of that
We
stuff.
didn't even get into the fact that Azazel is essentially claiming to be the inspiration for the biblical Satan, and that Angel is apparently an actual descendant of actual angels.
Oh, are we ready for
like that's intense. What?
So let's be clear. Let's be clear on what this comic, these pieces of paper that have been stapled together and told to us that it is art, and is instead the poop emoji 20 pages over and over again. It's telling us that Nightcrawler is the son of Satan, which I have a legion of issues with. The main one being that he was chased down and hated by people because he looked like a demon, and he said the whole thing is, I'm actually a really human dude. Like, you dare call that thing human? Well, yeah, I do dare call that thing human because I'm human. That doesn't work if he's actually a Satan.
Right.
No, he's not human. He's a Satan. You have incredibly legitimate reasons to be afraid of a Satan.
Can I tell you another reason that this really rings false for me? Yeah. Is that the Marvel Universe is littered with Satans. Like,
it's Satan City. I think there actually is a Satan City.
Yeah. Start with Mephisto and Blackheart, and then, if you get a chance, just go on Wikipedia and look it up. There's a whole page of demons, devils, hell lords, you name it, controlling some version of underworld in the Marvel Universe. Why would this random red Nightcrawler guy suddenly get to usurp all of them? Like, I find this story really baffling. There's a reference to quote unquote biblical times, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think you really understand what you're talking about when you're writing this.
I honestly, I have a pitch of like a one issue, and frankly, it's maybe an 8-page pitch that fixes Azazel and the Draco.
Ooh, I like this.
And it's essentially Azazel lies about everything. He's a dirty liar about everything, and it's because, unlike Nightcrawler, who saw the inner hatred or the hatred that people had for his exterior and chose to make his interior shine even more. Azazel leaned into the fact that everyone thinks I'm evil. I'm just going to be as evil as possible. I'm going to be the most evil thing in the world. And it doesn't make the Draco good, but it fixes all of the bad continuity things I have with it. And at least makes Nightcrawler not a Satan.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with the core idea of Azazel. There's a red Nightcrawler. Okay.
I mean, whatever.
I can get behind that. But what I can't get behind is multiple issues of people sitting around a large banquet table yelling at each other about God knows what, and random characters like Kiwi Black,
Nightcrawler's brother,
and Jennifer, like
Nightcrawler's demon sister, who definitely also comments on his junk.
Oh, so much junk notation. There's also a no-nose Nightcrawler who has portals coming out of his belly button that Polaris can stick her head through.
That's Abyss. That's Abyss from Age of Apocalypse. They took that amazing design of I'm Crazy Arm Man and turned him into noseless Nightcrawler.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I hate so much about this comic. I hate so much about this comic.
Well, I guess the question then is, how low do we want to put it on our list? Because I think the temptation might be to sink it to the bottom. So
I'm gonna tell you an unarguable truth. This is unquestionable. It's worse than God Loves Man Kills 2. Yes,
it absolutely is worse than God Loves Man Kills 2.
Unquestionably worse than God Loves Man Kills 2. Yep. Where it comes down to is this worse than X-Men Phoenix Legacy of Fire? And I would like to hear your stance first, because I have a thesis.
This is neck and neck, guys. I mean, Phoenix Legacy of Fire is nigh unreadable. Like, you should be ashamed to even glance at it. And we've gone into depth about that in that episode. So if you missed that episode, go back. It's the worst we've trash talked anything on this aside from God Loves Man Kills 2. And, I think similar things could be said about the Draco. There's a lot of just like, what is this? This should not be happening, et cetera, et cetera. I think that Phoenix edges out being worse. If for a couple of factors. The first and last issues of the Draco have acceptable art. I will go on record as saying that, Sean Phillips is talented. He's not doing a good story here, but there's some merit to that. And I don't think there's anything as objectionable in the Draco as that moment in Phoenix Legacy of Fire with Ileana. What's your thinking? Where are you going here?
I don't think you're necessarily wrong about anything you said. However, I think what's very important is this is a list of the best and worst X-Men stories of all time. And in a very important way, Phoenix Legacy of Fire is trash garbage. It is offensive in several ways. It's also irrelevant. And I think that's the one thing that I struggle with on this, because I have put a lot of thought into this one question. And where I land as an individual is that Phoenix Legacy of Fire is 3 horrible issues that no one will ever need to know about. Mm-hmm. It will fade away. The Draco is important to X-Men canon. As much as I absolutely despise it, it is. It also is just so long. It's 7 issues. It's miserable to get through. It ruins at least 2 characters for a while. It does some really bad things with other characters. It has abysmal art. But the biggest thing to me is it screws up Nightcrawler for me. It really does. And I love Nightcrawler. Kurt is my boy. Like, Cyclops is probably I think Cyclops is the best X-Men character. Nightcrawler may be my favorite X-Men character. and it does so much to screw him up that I can't in good faith call anything a worse X-Men story than the Draco. Like, what it comes down to me is this is important. Phoenix Legacy of Fire is the exact opposite.
I can get behind this argument because you're bringing up a good point. Like, Phoenix Legacy of Fire is a weird thing that no one even knows about. Whereas if you're doing a run of all 500 and some issues of Uncanny, you're going to read this, and it's in canon. So you have to get through this to understand what happens in later issues. So I'm with you. I think we could put this at the new 100.
So do you know what the other good thing about this being at the new 100 is?
That we don't have to keep saying Phoenix Legacy of Fire when we say the worst story.
We never have to remind people of it. It can die with us.
I love it.
The Dracos are new number 100. Screw all of you. Oof. And I'm sorry that we had to deal with 21 minutes of the Draco. So we'll try. I need a refresher. I need something better. I need something that will lift my spirits and make life mean something again.
Well, you couldn't pick a better second story than Dave Cockrum's Nightcrawler miniseries, because holy dear Lord, it's pure unadulterated joy in a comic form.
Yeah.
I have not loved a comic book as much as I loved this in ages.
It's so good,
you
right?
You love Nightcrawler. You must have been like just overjoyed to revisit this.
I wasn't actually planning on revisiting this because here's the thing. I have a lot of comics that I read, and I was kind of running late on this episode. So I was like, oh crap, I have to read all that Cyclops stuff. I got to read the Draco again, and that's just going to make me upset. And I have to read our next story. And I was like, well, I'll flip through Nightcrawler. And I got to page 3 and said, no, I'm rereading everything about this. I love this story. This is so good. What happens in this, Adam?
Well, I mean, it's some kind of nonsense, really, because there is a reference back to, what's the other title?
Bizarre
that
Adventures
refers back to?
27.
Bizarre Adventures. Yes. Which involved some sort of very vague dimension hopping thing, which Kitty and Ileana somehow managed to recreate within the Danger Room.
Yes.
Okay. But upon hopping through it, Nightcrawler, and this is a stroke of genius to bring Lockheed with him as part of the story, basically go on this amazing space pirate adventure that involves just about everything you could possibly throw in. I just made a quick list. There is a full-on Smurf parody here, space pirates, hissing Sharkman sorcery, a dinosaur cowboy, ElfQuest and Cerebus jokes. Like, there is a lot packed into these issues, and I am smiling ear to ear as I read every single page. It is a work of it's just genius. I love it.
Yeah. Nightcrawler is Dave Cockrum's favorite character. Like, he was obviously his favorite character on X-Men, and I'm pretty sure he's Dave Cockrum's favorite character of all time. Well, wait. Yeah, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to definitely say yes. And that shows here because Dave Cockrum has an absolute blast writing and drawing this. You know, Claremont was initially pegged to write this thing. And I think what happened is Cockrum, either Claremont got too busy or Cockrum straight up said, nah, I got this. Like, I love you, Chris, but you're going to let me have this one. And it works out because this feels just different enough from Claremont's X-Men at the time to stand out, but not so different that it feels out of place. Like, this is just friggin' fun.
Yeah. Oh, it sure is. And, you know, it's interesting because recently I've been going back with my daughter on Marvel's Unlimited. They have the Star comics from Star Wars. They have the Ewoks and the droids. They don't have a lot of they don't have the licenses for a lot of the other Star comics that were being published at the time.
How do they not have all of Planet Terry on there?
Who got brought back? Didn't they? Chip Zdarsky bring Planet Terry back? Am I making that up? Somebody brought him back in a.
I know that. Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. I've got the Marvel Wikia open right now. I'm going to figure this out as we go on. I know he was in the X Babies series, but so were a lot of the Star Comics guys.
No, but it was like an adult version of Planetary. Like he had grown up.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Who? All right, we got to figure this out because I know I'm not making this up. Planetary.
Guys, you understand that he is a space prince and his name is Planetary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy where he came back, or
it was in Drax. It was in the Cullen Bunn and he's a wrestle boy. He's one of them wrestle boys who did this. Oh, what's his name?
CM Punk.
CM Punk, yes. Cullen Bunn and CM Punk brought Planetary back.
Yeah. That's crazy. Anyway, my point is that, like at this point in the 80s, the Marvel imprint had this other element of all ages comics that I also, I remember it kind of fondly. And there's an element of that in this book. Like the idea that Nightcrawler is going and having these very fun, silly space pirate adventures that are, everything here is very all ages and silly and goofy, but it still really works with the character. I really like it. I don't know. It makes me want to go back and reread it over and over again. It keys in on what makes Nightcrawler such a fun, versatile character, is that he's able to pop in and out of these and have these swashbuckling adventures.
Yeah. And we're not talking about the plot here, because not that the plot is thin necessarily. It's just the plot is an excuse to let Nightcrawler hang out with like the fairy tale characters from Kitty Pryde's fairy tale, or to save a princess, or to pretend to be a pirate until he realizes, oh wait, pirates were bad. I should fight pirates. Okay. Sword, swashbuckle. It's delightful.
Yeah.
And Cockrum's art, by the way, like Dave Cockrum's good at drawing comics, and he continues to be good at drawing comics in this comic.
Well, and you can tell that he is just having an absolute blast making this book. Like just the visual inventiveness of, there are squid spaceships with boats hanging underneath them. Individual character designs here are just, they're silly, but they work. There's great costume design throughout the whole thing. And I don't know, it's very visually engaging. I like the way this is colored too. Like it just has a real bright, fun aspect to it throughout.
Yeah, this is just good comics. This is fun Marvel comics that I really enjoy. Did you know his wife colored this?
Oh no, I didn't catch that.
Yeah. I didn't either until right now, because Patty Cockrum definitely colored this. So this is just fun comics by a fun team. Like this is just good fun comics. It's the anti-Draco.
That's a good way to put it, because as we were harshing on the Draco for good reason, this is really like the anti-Draco, because this is exactly what you want Nightcrawler to be. You want him to be fun. You want him to be ebullient and running around and having these fun adventures, which he also gets to do in Excalibur to a certain extent, depending on who's on the book. But this is just, I can't recommend this highly enough. Like if you've never read this, track it down, read it. You will not regret it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's on that app. Go get it. Can I tell you one last thing before we rank this? Because we do need to rank this. Do you know what I think is the most telling difference between this and the Draco?
What's that?
There's also a panel of someone commenting on Nightcrawler's junk in this comic. And instead of it being terrifying and horrifying like it is in the Draco, it's charming and endearing and kind of funny in this.
Yes, yeah. The closest this comes to like an actual dirty joke is a joke about Ileana owning copies of Playgirl at the very end. But you're right.
Which is uncomfortable.
It is.
She's a child.
that is the closest that this comes to doing an off-color joke. That scene with Nightcrawler's clothes disappearing and reappearing is really funny and charming.
Yeah, this is better than it should be, and I love it so much. Where should we rank this? I want to hear your thoughts, Adam. I want to hear your thoughts because I feel like I'm probably the more binary good bad of us, where you have a bit more nuance to your opinions on occasion.
I really love when you can tell that a creator has like a solid vision for the character, and that it's executed so flawlessly. I mean, I know that people may look at this miniseries and think of it as kind of slight or silly, but I think there's a lot of merit to this. It definitely solidifies who Nightcrawler is and allows him to go on a very, very fun adventure that I frankly want to revisit often. Is it important to continuity? Not really. We are going to talk a little bit more about BAMFs, or pseudo BAMFs as I'm calling them, in a moment. But this, doesn't really have a lot of necessary things to revisit in terms of continuity or canon. But I sure do enjoy it. So I am looking higher in the list than I thought I maybe would.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of at. This is great. It gives us Cretaceous Sam, who is he's a T-Rex cowboy, and he's going to drill Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
He's very good.
Oh man. Like, I'm looking pretty high in the list.
Is this better than the X Factor Fall of the Mutants?
That is our current number 11. And
that's our current number 11.
I might enjoy reading this better than that. I
think it's actually better.
Yeah, like you, I know you're very fond of the Colossus versus Juggernaut issue, and I feel like this, it has that kind of like revisit factor. Like, I want to go back and spend some time in this world again.
Yeah.
So
it's close, because I don't think it's better than Dark Angel Saga, which is not an insult to it. Dark Angel Saga is really friggin' good too.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking, does it sneak into the top 10, or is it just outside of it?
I think it's just outside of it. I don't think it's better than that Colossus versus Juggernaut issue, which is an absolute like masterpiece X-Men issue, that will, stand as a classic forever. Yeah, so I would probably put it at 11.
I think that's really fair, because I think that's also correct, because Nightcrawler by Cockrum is legit. So go read it.
It's awesome. Go read it.
Like, seriously, guys, don't read the Draco. Don't hate read the Draco. Love read Nightcrawler.
Yeah. You will be smiling from ear to ear as opposed to yelling at the top of your lungs with your mouth full of glue. It's a big change.
Let's talk about the last story on our list.
Yeah. Which is an interesting mix of the two stories we just talked about, which is Amazing X-Men 1 through 5.
The Quest for Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
So,
which is kind of a culmination of Wolverine and the X-Men in a lot of ways.
It is, but I think in a very different way, because this is what Aaron started right as he finished Wolverine and the X-Men. Mm-hmm. This was, I think, like the next week. So Nightcrawler died. He died from a really bad case of having an arm inside of him, which isn't healthy. Went to heaven, but didn't go in. Like, he just kind of hung out on the edges of heaven, kicking rocks, and saying, man, I kind of want to be like enjoying heaven, but also I really want to fight a pirate.
Which is exactly what happens. We get to go on another pirate adventure here. Obviously very different than what we saw in the miniseries, though.
Yes. Can we talk about who this bad pirate boy is?
Yeah, because it's not the fun space pirates from the Nightcrawler mini. Our good friend from the Draco, Azazel, has returned.
This is so hard for me because up until November of 2013, X-Men fans were content of saying, wow, the Draco happened, and we're going to put that in this box saying do not open and never bring it up again. And we were okay with it. Fans retconned it. It didn't have to be real anymore. And then Jason Aaron said, but wait a minute. What if Azazel was his dad? And Azazel's completely different here. Azazel's generic red Nightcrawler, but a pirate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this version's much better. I think even the motivation makes a little more sense. The idea that, Azazel is just kind of like pirating through heaven. Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah, he just wants to steal all the souls out of heaven and purgatorio.
I think Ed McGuinness is doing a fantastic job on the art here. It's really, really beautiful work. It's kind of cartoony, but the storytelling is pretty solid. And we get a kind of like a version of the Wolverine and the X-Men team searching through the afterlife for Nightcrawler here that involves Firestar, Iceman, Storm, Beast, Northstar, I think, is also on this team, right?
Yep. And Wolvie, our good buddy Logan, Lucky Jim.
Yeah.
I think you're aware of him.
I really wish that this was just a mini series, though. Like right after this, if I remember correctly, was when they announced that Jason Aaron was picked to relaunch Star Wars for Marvel. And so he didn't stay on the book for very long. And really,
he does one issue after this, and it's a 2-part issue that he only does one part of and is never revisited.
Yeah. Like this could have been a Nightcrawler-led X team, I guess. But
which is the superior X.
But we only get to the part where Nightcrawler gets reincarnated before Aaron leaves the book. So we really don't get a chance to see what, was supposed to happen. Instead, we get a Wendigo war, which is cool, but not what I think maybe this was going to be.
No, there's some disappointment of what happened after, but I don't think we can necessarily hold that against these 5 issues.
Oh.
I will say of these 5 issues, I like so much of the team, but I don't feel like Northstar and Firestar fit on this team very well. Like they just don't have. Firestar does a bit better because she is the point of view character for so much of this. But Northstar in particular just kind of feels like he's there.
Yeah. Yep.
He doesn't contribute much. And even Firestar, just partly because she doesn't have the deep relationships that like Storm or Wolverine or Beast have with Nightcrawler, her contributions to this team dynamic, especially in this part of the book, feel lesser.
Mm-hmm. And she's used as a point of entry character.
She does set hell on fire.
Yeah, sure. I will say that the story has 2 things in it that rereading it made me kind of scratch my head about. The first one is that Charles Xavier is in heaven, which brings up just kind of like an interesting thing about the fact that Charles Xavier is dead, because we now realize that when he died, that means that Charles Xavier, I guess his soul went to heaven so it could stand around and look disapprovingly at Nightcrawler in a toga.
Yes.
His psychic form was imprisoned by Shadow King and then fused to Phantom X in Astonishing. And then his brain was co-opted by Red Skull and then later destroyed by Rogue in Uncanny Avengers. That's a lot of post-death stuff to happen to Charles Xavier. Like, wow. Okay.
Essentially, everyone took his being and chopped it into a lot of pieces and said, and here's some for you, and here's some for you, and here's some for you. And guys, do with this what you will, because frankly, he's a lot more interesting dead than he is alive.
Oh, sure. Sure is. Now, the other thing that really I had forgotten about was that throughout Wolverine and the X-Men, there are BAMFs, and they are causing mayhem and drinking Logan's whiskey, and they're a problem throughout the series. But this 5 issues tries to sew up what the Bamfs are, and we actually get an origin story of the Blue Bamfs, because they were not actually Bamfs like they were in the Nightcrawler mini. They originally were the forgotten, like maggot-like children of some creature in hell that Azazel fed his own blood. And then Nightcrawler got them to turn blue and help him come back to our world, or the 616, by promising them his soul. So this is staggering to me. I had forgotten that Nightcrawler's corporeal form, returning to Earth, is made up of the blue pseudo-Bamfs, which means that Nightcrawler is literally made of maggots.
Which I approve.
Not maggot, not bring back maggot, like these little gross things. I mean,
I take what I can get here, man. Don't take this away from me.
Wow. So I had forgotten about that aspect of this origin story, and the fact that Pickles, the Bamf, is actually a maggot and Nightcrawler is made of maggots is just something to digest there. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think as a story this works amazingly well. Like, honestly, I dropped this when I was reading it. I was like, I'm going to get through issue 5 of this, but I don't need to pick up the rest of this series. I'm kind of good.
Yeah, I remember doing the same.
Like, it was a lot of hype that didn't live up to the hype. But I like parts of it. Ed McGuinness's art in particular. He draws some very, very good splash pages. Like, he has several awesome Nightcrawlers a pirate poses. Like, I can think of like 4, and they're all great. And he does a very good hug.
Yeah, absolutely. He also does some cool stuff with Nightcrawler bamfing around, like the teleportation things where he's like in a fight scene and teleporting around. He does a really good job with that. I like the way he does that.
Yeah,
throughout the 5 issues.
Yeah, at that point, Aaron and McGuinness have relaunched the Avengers, and I mean, it comes out tomorrow as we're recording this, so I hope it's very good, and I hope at least McGuinness's art lives up to the high quality work he's doing here.
Well, I have high hopes for that. I mean, Aaron has definitely really come into his own with Thor over the last couple of years. So I'm anticipating that'll be pretty neat.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I don't know really that I need to revisit this though. So where would you rank it?
This is good, but forgettable. It really is. That's exactly where this thing falls. And, last episode we talked about, let's say, the Acts of Vengeance story.
Yeah.
Of Uncanny X-Men. And I don't think this is as good as that. I think this has better individual moments, mostly hugs and Nightcrawler pinups. But as a story, I think Act of Vengeance is a good amount better. I think like the all-new Wolverine Annual, which is currently our number 50, is better. But I like this better than that. I personally like this better than that Wolverine and the X-Men story where Kitty Pryde gets pregnant with a bunch of brood.
I think that's a good place to put it, because I still like Wolverine Snicked better than this, but putting it, in comparison to another Wolverine, another Jason Aaron story, I think this is better than that particular arc. I think that's a good place on the list for it.
All right. Well, that puts it as our new number 56 on the list. Amazing X-Men 1 through 5, The Quest for Nightcrawler.
Nice.
Yeah, and that does it for this episode. This was a lot of everything. It's
been an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, this was a lot of bad, a lot of good, and we've leveled out, I think, is an appropriate way to deal with it. So first and foremost,
absolutely,
thank you, Chris. If you want to be like Chris and put us through literal hell, you can go to patreon.com/XavierFiles and support the show that way. At the $2 level, you can request a specific story, and we will look at that, and we will craft an entire episode around it, and it'll be very good. It'll be fun, or it'll be just odd. I'm not sure which, but it'll be something. All right. So that's a ton of fun. It supports everything that happens in the Xavier Files media empire, which is all hosted at XavierFiles.com. I do weekly articles about different X-Men. I got news. I got stuff and things. Go check it out. It's fun. I've put a lot of words on that site. Maybe check it out, you ungrateful people. Also, twitter.com/XavierFiles. Hit me up. Slide into my DMs. Adam, where can people find you online?
Guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy, and we still have some new pages of Bish and Jubes coming out at adamrec.tumblr.com.
Yeah. This is fun. So the good news is the Draco is now behind us, and it can never hurt us again.
Thank goodness.
Next week, we get kind of robotronic as we talk about some stories about some robots gone bad. So, or good, or in between. We'll see. Also, I'm pretty sure on one of those stories, someone is going to punch Nazis while wearing a starfish on his head. So look forward to that.
Yes.
Until then, this has been Battle of the Atom, and more than any other episode, we hope you survived the experience.
Get it!